I'm here really to, as an ambassador, I would say, of this program, the BRE program. I don't know if anybody here was involved in the launch of the Bradford Religion Partner Enterprise ecosystem. But entrepreneurship is going to be a very, very big thing in the University of Bradford. If you talk to Shirley, our Vice Chancellor, she wants us to be the leading university, not the leading university for entrepreneurship. And that's actually slightly different to a view you might have, let's say, Imperial College London, where maybe 5% of the people are involved in some high value, perhaps even high tech spin-outs. What we want to achieve here in Bradford is to see the majority of people on campus, whether they are community members passing through, whether they're academics, whether they're staff, whether they're people such as yourselves who are actually engaging with us. But we want to see a large proportion of people involved in enterprise. One of my early successes for me was working late on a Friday night. Some of you will know this story. And there's a knock on the door, and it's the security guard. And he says to me, "Oh, I'm just here to check that you're okay." Then he said to me, "Actually, I'm lying." And he said, "I've got a business idea." And so I'm there with the guy in the yellow biz jacket and a piece of paper, and we're sketching something out. Could be the next big startup here in Bradford. So what I'm here to do is to persuade those of you that are on the brink of throwing it all in and starting an enterprise to take that jump. For those of you that, many of you in the room are involved in running an enterprise, maybe it's something you started out yourselves or something that you've become part of, please share your knowledge with us. And for those of you that are working in established enterprises as well, you have so much to offer, so many skills to share. I'm a corporate guy originally, but much more into this space, and a lot of my corporate knowledge still helps me to this day. I've cobbled together all sorts of slides from different aspects of our programs just to give you a flavour of what's going on. But my main goal here is to help you to go on a journey really in terms of the confidence of an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurship, it has its risk. It requires a certain degree of resourcefulness. And sometimes you're using the resources that you have to the absolute max. I hate the definitions that I see out there of entrepreneurs, but essentially, it says you're managing something, setting something up, and inevitably it requires some initiative. And there's the R word, the risk word, or the S word, the failure word that kicks in. And failure is an interesting concept. I happen to believe that in this country, we've got the whole concept of entrepreneurial failure completely wrong. A couple of years ago, I was presenting to an investor. I was in the US. Obviously worked very hard with the team on the pitch. And eventually, at the end of it all, the investor said, thought that was an excellent pitch, he said. Really, really liked the business, really liked the idea, fantastic team, and off he went. Long list of all the things that he liked about this. We're after about £3-4 million. It's a decent ask, really. And at the end of all this stuff, and I was thinking, he's going to reach for the checkbook any moment. He said to me, "Well, but we're not going to invest." And I asked him why, and he said, "Well, you haven't failed. You haven't failed in this sector. I can see you failed in other sectors, but you haven't failed in this one. I don't want to fund your first failure. Come back to me when you failed, and I would be absolutely delighted to fund you." It's a very different mindset to the one we have here. I got an email just earlier this week. One of the entrepreneurs we were working with 3 years ago, she set up a food business. She was on Harry Biker. She was in every Waitrose in the country within 2 years of setting up a business. Really, really well. The business went on. And for me, one of the best moments of this year is seeing that email that came in this week saying, "You know what, I'm having another go, and I'm going to apply everything that I've learned to the next thing. So the first thing I'd say to you is and there's a much harder message later on, but if you believe this guy, he said he wouldn't regret failing. He would regret not trying. And I set up my first business. I set up my first NGO when I was very, very young, actually, and it's still running to this day and no longer needs me, which is great. But I set up my first business enterprise, far too late in my career. I wish I'd done it earlier. Dimensions of enterprise, all shapes and sizes, and we work with all shapes and sizes here. So whether it's commercial, whether it's a social, and of course we all know that the two kind of overlaps. You have commercial enterprises that do good in the world, social enterprises. We have to design them to be sustainable. And of course, our students come across all these quadrants. But I mean, often what tends to happen is they start sort of top left. And with the help of the canons of this world, they move to bottom right and start to understand more about how they can make money while they sleep, which is always a good strategy for an entrepreneur, in my view. And some of these perspectives on entrepreneurship are quite harsh. We can work for somebody else, we can work for ourselves. And one of the things we try and say to our students is if you are spectacularly successful, please send a helicopter to campus and fly us out to wherever the party is. We'd love to come along. But actually, success might involve 25 years of paying a mortgage. And if you just want an extra 10 minutes in bed in the morning, then you're the boss, so you can decide. And of course, most entrepreneurs will tell you that an extra 10 minutes in bed in the morning is the last thing that's going to happen. But in any case, it's about that freedom. It's about an ability to change the world. I'm personally finding it very, very difficult to run my company at the moment. Really, really tough. And yet yesterday, talking to Gates Foundation, they were saying, you realise if you can pull this off, it is an absolute game changer. So it's this idea that at the end of the day, we should be way beyond making money as an entrepreneur as our goal. And often, if you have that broader goal, then it's going to ultimately lead to the financial success or certainly the satisfaction that we all need in our lives. And so, of course, this idea of legacy that has become a theme for today's workshop, and I'll be participating in some discussion later on. But this, for me, is absolutely right. It's about what impact you want to do. It's about doing stuff that excites you, about living your passion, paying yourself to fuel your passion. All these things that entrepreneurship ultimately is all about. So the first myth I'd like to sort of bust, if I can, and then again, many people in the room will know this already, but a lot of people come up to me and they say, oh, I'd love to be an entrepreneur. I really want to be an entrepreneur. Just don't have an idea. And I'm really struggling to find a winning idea. It's almost as though, as soon as you have the idea, that's it. Your life is mapped out and success is assured. Of course, we know it's not like that. But also, for me, it doesn't always start with the idea. Now, we'll go through some techniques that I go through with students in terms of how we can come up with ideas. We need to remember that there are different processes for generating ideas. So whether it is, it's a bit similar to the AI concept we were looking at earlier. So, can it be a cognitive, deliberate invention after invention, as Edison did, eventually got there. With countless failures, countless patents filed that never actually worked. So it can be something you work at. It can be something that just happens to you, the Newton's apple sort of idea. It just suddenly you realise something. You can go into that emotional space where you're really trying hard to explore where you are. The sort of the therapy type approach. And then there's that wonderful spontaneity that we enjoy in all sorts of parts of our lives, whether it's music or whether it's coding, where you're just in that space and stuff, amazing stuff starts to happen. One of the questions that I often ask people, and I'm taking a bit of a risk here because I imagine that there are a few people in the room who can already answer this question, but the question I often ask them as they start to sort of shape this vision and these dreams for the future, what would you do if you had £5 million in your bank account? Now, those of you that already have £5 million in your bank account, you might just have to wait for 5 minutes, and then we'll get back to some more interesting entrepreneurial stuff. But for the others that don't have £5 million in their bank account, what would you do? What would you do if you had £5 million now? And you know, it's a realistic scenario. You could be on a whim, you could go and buy a lottery ticket out there. There's a news agent. Who knows? It's Saturday. They could win it. And before you know it, I think it does work. When they give you a little bit of counselling about it, you're going to win in 2-3 days. There is £5 million sitting in your bank. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Put your hand up if you think it would change your life. Wow, okay. So a lot of people would say £5 million would change their life, yeah? And you know, how many people in this room would be doing something completely different now if you had £5 million in your bank account? Yeah, okay, all right. Interesting. There's a bit of a mixed response here. So the question is not really, you know, what would you do with 5 million? But, you know, how could you start a business now doing the same things as if you did have 5 million? And that's the key thing, because, you know, one of the views that I have is that we are trapped, we are imprisoned by a paradigm of our own making, which says, if I had money, my life would be different. And in that paradigm, there's discomfort and comfort. The discomfort is, well, you know, I don't have the money, and I wish I had the money, and all that means. And of course, many people are really struggling at the moment. But the comfort is, it provides a framework, somewhere where you can stay doing exactly what you're doing now, and somewhere where you can actually have a conversation with yourself that says, you know, one day I'll take the plunge. One day it might be different. And so we tend to build a prison for ourselves, which is, you know, around this lack of money. And I've got a friend of mine, it's true story. I was at school with him. He loved sailing. I remember him going in his first sort of sailing class, you know, at school. It was after he was in a little reservoir. It was horribly cold. He was in a topper. He kept capsizing, and he just the excitement on his face when he had his first sailing experience. Of course, what he ended up doing is getting his yacht master and his ocean master and all these different qualifications to become a better and better sailor. And in the end, he set up a yacht delivery company. So he picks up a yacht from a shipyard somewhere. He sails it to some, maybe it's Monaco, to some destination. Part of the contract is he then has a private jet fly him to the next location where he picks up another yacht and sails that yacht to another grateful owner. He travels with a group of friends. They party on the yacht, and then about 2 days before they actually reach the port, they clean the yacht, make sure it's absolutely packing, and then they deliver it. Yeah, not a bad life, eh? I met a guy on the plane actually, you know, and I couldn't believe this. He said to me, I asked him what he did for a living. He said, "Oh, I'm a consultant anaesthetist." Oh, that's interesting. Where do you work? So I do about 4 months a year. So I work at this hospital. And then I said, "What do you do? You know, is it just 4 months a year?" He said, "No, 4 months a year." He said, "I work in a ski resort. What I do is I ski. And then if there's somebody who has an accident in the resort, the helicopter comes and picks me up, and I attend to the casualty. It only happens about once a week," he said. "And then I go back to skiing." And I said, "Oh, well, what do you do for the remaining 4 months of the year?" He said, "Well, what do you think I did? I go on holidays. I don't really want this life." But the reality is, you see, the guy who owns a yacht delivery company, he came to me and said, "You know, I can afford a yacht now, but I don't want to buy one because I love boats. And if I buy a boat today, it's going to be out of date in 6 months' time, and I'm going to wish I had the latest tech to play with. So I'm going to carry on delivering other people's boats. I travel. Well, you could set up an adventure travel company. You just need to be one trip ahead of anybody else. I help people, but, you know, I fell into setting up an NGO when I was 17 years old. It's brought me so much pleasure and satisfaction in my life, you know, and working with a group of then students who then became, you know, able to really bring some considerable resources to the NGO. You know, I've got this idea. Well, you know, there are investors. We'll have a quick look at those later on. I would go and live on an island. I would live on an island. Well, it would probably take you about £500 to go and live on an island. You just need to get the airfare. You have to find some way of getting from the airport to the island, to the beach, perhaps. Then you'd have to walk along the beach, almost guaranteed that there will be a bar or a hotel or something that's high. And for 500 quid, you've changed your life. And yet we trap ourselves in this vision of not having the money. And therefore, there's the great reason for us not being able to do what we really want to do. So don't be limited by your own imagination. Don't be limited by other people's imagination. All these things are possible. But of course, in entrepreneurship, and talking to my yacht delivery friend, he's put a lot of hard work into building that business as well. Okay, so a myth. To be an entrepreneur, you need to have a good idea. I don't think so. This is the slide I share with our students. University is an example. Shed loads of IP that is going absolutely nowhere. You know, you've got 2 or 3 very talented people in a technology transfer office managing a portfolio of 100 patents. You know, academics might file patents partly because it's a measure of esteem. Yeah. If you don't have the tech, there's bags of tech in universities. We just need the right talent. I was running a program for refugees and had just come into the city, and refugees is a bit of a theme for some of the work that we do. Refugees are very, very active people in my experience. It takes a lot of guts to run, and you tend to be, it's the high-profile people that are targeted first. So often refugees were very prominent in their society. And this chap, he comes on our program, and he has a PhD in biomedical engineering. And he's saying to me, well, I'm from Sudan. I'm thinking of setting up a sandal store in Bradford Market and selling Sudanese sandals. And I'm thinking, you know, it could take off, but has anybody seen the weather in Bradford? It's really, really unlikely that this person's going to make money. And yet we're desperate for pure PhD talent to work with some of the intellectual property that this university owns. Yeah. So it's all about changing the model and bringing talent and working with talent where you find it and helping people to realize that it's their entrepreneurial DNA that's valued far, far more than the idea. So, generating business ideas, there are all sorts of techniques. The one I like the most is trying to solve a problem, think of an illegal solution. I used to have a colleague at University of Bradford, he now works at the University of Leeds, and he used to sit in these very long meetings with the executive team of the university. And I said to him, how do you pass it on? He's a really gentle chap. I used to go skiing with him, and you know, he was always the one that made a cup of coffee, you know, 10 minutes before you were about to wake up, and the shower was always free. And great sort of traveling companion, really nice guy. And I said, you know, how do you pass your time in these interminably long meetings? He said, well, what I do is I plan an amusing death for every single member. The vice chancellor was a cardboard man. And I was so shocked. This gentle chap amused himself with these bizarre thoughts, but they are just thoughts. You know, you try and get a bunch of pharmaceutical executives to think about something illegal. They really struggle. But it's a great technique. how would I solve this problem illegally? And then, of course, the next thing is, how do we make that solution legal? And you never know, you stretch your thinking to a place that you didn't think was possible. So there are all these little techniques that work, and they work really, really well. And when we're running these workshops, I hope some of you will come and mentor and work with our students. We don't let them leave the room until they've generated 1,000 business ideas. 24 students have to generate 1,000 ideas in order to leave the room. It's a lot more than the idea ultimately that's going to get you there. So once you've got your idea, then it's relatively straightforward to select them. You've got to look at the greens, the size of the market, the advantage you have, but also you've got to look at the costs and the downsides, and then make those choices. Yesterday we finished one of the student workshops, and this chap came along, and his whole business had started with a poster that was generated. One of the 1,000 that he was now saying, I now employ this number of people in the city. And this process has worked for me. Just going to check my the time, because I don't want to run out of many glasses. I want to have a break as well. I'll keep it right through it. So I'm going to go and give you some ideas now, some examples of entrepreneurship in practice. One of the things you'll notice is that we're not going to be focusing too much on those icons of success. We're going to be focusing on the practicality of those people that have actually gone on and gone on with it. But the MBA plan that we're going to have, it does look a little bit like the reality of being an entrepreneur, of course. I think I kind of feel as though I'm in that boat at the moment, and the boat is leaking, and I don't have a life jacket, and I can't swim, and all those things. The good news is, and of course I don't really need to say this to a room full of MBAs, but actually one thing I learned on the MBA really is that most good business is common sense. And if you're hearing all the jargon and you're feeling bamboozled by the conversations of the investors, actually most business is all about common sense. And that's one of the reasons why it's such good fun. So what's the worst thing that can happen if you fail as an entrepreneur? Yeah. All of us have this fear of being destitute in this country in general, not for everybody. There are many, many vulnerable people in our society, but for most of the people I would say in this room, it still involves being able to eat. It still involves having the people that love you still love you. It still has that philosophy that says, well, today is the first day of the rest of my life. So this fear of failure is something that we need to get beyond. It isn't easy. The CEO, I slept like a baby, I woke up every 2 hours and cried. An entrepreneurship mindset, you can find it in the most unexpected places. I spent 3 very, very happy years earning $200 a month as an overall director of a United Nations refugee program in Africa, Tanzania then. It was a pretty challenging business environment. There were things to deal with in Africa that I've never had to deal with in AstraZeneca. The logistics, unbelievable in the rainy season. In the mango season, orthopedic admissions went through the roof. It's really interesting. It's the kids were climbing up the tree, helping themselves to the mangoes, falling out, and then obviously having to cover them up. So you have all sorts of really weird trends when you analyse the data, but that is a refugee camp. And shockingly, sadly, you have to perform operations in these environments. You cannot build a proper hospital. You're not allowed to. It's in contravention of the local ministry rules. You have to have a temporary facility that can return back to nature. But it's interesting. So even in this environment, I saw some amazing entrepreneurs. Now, let me give you a complicated example, just to start, just to say, okay, how complicated can a great idea really be? Okay. So this is the Flying Syringe project. You might not be able to see it behind the chairs there. Basically, what happens is you genetically engineer the parasite that the mosquito carries, so that when it bites you, it vaccinates you against malaria. True project. Yeah. Gates Foundation are now the second version of this project. So it doesn't affect the ecosystem in any way. You can bring it on as many mosquitoes as you like, but instead of causing malaria, the very vector that creates malaria is actually being the solution. So it's really wonderful. But of course, in practicality, you might say, well, let's get some nets. You know, and we spent a fortune on nets in our program, and most of them were traded for all sorts of things, including fishing. It was a real problem. The solution to reducing malaria mortality in the camps that I was responsible for was about buying an extra 2% more cooking oil, vegetable oil, and pouring that oil on stagnant water so the mosquitoes couldn't breathe, and therefore you had less opportunities for malaria larvae. You know, there's a lot of interest, of course, and rightly so, about drones. I don't know whether you've come across the Matinet idea, but a wonderful antidote to the sort of horrible road conditions and logistical challenges that I was showing you in the slides. So the idea here is that the drone picks up its packet, delivers to another solar powered station, picks up a new battery, deposits the other battery that gets solar charged, and you create this network of drones. Really lovely idea, and is working quite well in some parts of Africa. But this is great entrepreneurship. This is an NGO. You see, Coca-Cola, as we know, have got a global strategy of putting a bottle of Coke within 20 meters of every person on the planet. I just need to check. I think you're less than 20 meters away from me, so we're okay. There we go. We're all right. We're okay. They've succeeded even in this room. Now, the thing is, Coca-Cola can get bottles of Coke to the most remote parts of the world. They can get Coke to places where we cannot get medicines, generally carried by somebody appropriately incentivized in a crate on the back of a bicycle. So what if we actually make those crates just 5 or 10 centimeters deeper so that they can be used to deliver medicine? So how can we leverage that supply chain in order to, and actually we were, you know, this particular NGO was working in partnership with Coke as well. Bradford is doing some cracking work. Sadly, these days I spend much less time working in China than I did. It was you know, an amazing experience at its heyday in a way. But you know, if you are a woman in this country and you have a breast biopsy, you've got to wait my daughter's in hospital at the moment. We have absolutely no idea what's wrong with her. It takes a long, long time for the diagnostics to kick in. You know, 2 weeks for a breast biopsy, that's 2 very, very worrying weeks for a woman. And then, you know, she might be clear, she might not be. This is a project where essentially, and it was the Bradford pathology team that initiated the project. So the biopsy is taken. Automatically you take a slice of the tissue. Automatically it's histopathology is done, so it's stained. The image is uploaded, and then it is burst sort of Uber style to pathologists all around the world, licensed pathologists. So you know, if the biopsy is done in 2 o'clock in the morning, that's a great time for China. You know, they're just starting work. You know, if it's done, you know, and so on and so forth. So we just had these teams of pathologists, consultant pathologists, who would look at the images and say, you know, well, that looks absolutely like this. And if they all agree and there's no contradiction, then the diagnosis is confirmed. If they don't agree, then it's referred to a specialist consultant who would then see the patient straight away. We reduced, in this sort of pilot, we reduced the waiting time from 2 weeks to 17 minutes. And I imagine with Cameron's help, we could probably do a little bit better. Turning one thing that many elderly people can do is to use a remote control on their TVs. And if you actually have sent a text message one of the things that fascinates me, again, you don't need a new idea. You can steal an idea. My wife is a GP. She prescribes acupuncture on the NHS. She doesn't have the first clue how it works, but it's licensed in the NHS. So I met this guy, a professor in China, in Guangzhou, and he used to be a professor of a Fraunhofer Germany. So he was consulted in Western medicine, consulted in Chinese medicine. And what he does is he measures photonic emission, light particles that are emitted from our fingertips. And he has correlated elevated emission of light particles from the fourth finger of your left hand, correlates that with cardiovascular mobility. Why do we wear a ring on our fourth finger of the left hand? What is the meridian line associated with the heart? It's the fourth finger of the left hand that runs all the way through to the heart. There's so much that we've learned as society that we can share in the advancement of knowledge. And again, it's this open approach to ideation and innovation that we can think about. So just a few final slides, just to introduce a little bit more about our ecosystem and some of the companies we're working with. I'll do a sort of a whistle-stop tour through some of them. They're all real companies. Bradford, proud to be here in Bradford. Absolutely delighted to have you here. It's so highly regarded. You know, we're a city of culture. There's a lot to celebrate. It's also typically, depends which ranking you look at, in the top 3 entrepreneurial cities in the UK. Great place to run a program. We've got all these different centres of excellence that we can access, work with, all these resources to create apps, to analyze chemicals, to do high-power computing, to discover new therapeutics. There's a lot of capability, as with any university, really. I should also do a shameless plug for our City of Film. Bradford is the founding City of Film, the global UNESCO film network. What we're going to be doing is running programs for everybody, for students, ASAP, for researchers, for graduates, for talent development programs that would entice some of you to come to Bradford and set up a company with us, working with companies, working with security guards. We're just about to kick off a cracking program with schools where the schools are encouraged to create enterprises that generate revenue that supplement school funding, and the CEO is going to be, the board is going to be the kids themselves. We're working with survivors of modern-day slavery in the city, as happens in every city, and helping people to pair up with established entrepreneurs to gain that confidence to create a new business. We have these different programs for students, international programs. I won't go into too much detail. We get some great profile. That guy there is one of the founders of Bitcoin, coming along to talk to our Bradford Chinese students about. And these are some of the startups that we're really proud of. You'll see some of them are small, some of them are large, some of them are low tech, some of them are high tech, but they're all great companies. From our academic base, there have been some fabulous startups. Pronata is, if you meet my little boy, he's got scars on his head from when he was pulled a little bit too hard on delivery. Can we develop some forceps that are safer for mum, safer for the baby, limit the traction, redistribute the force to where the baby and mum is strongest. This is a company now based in Leeds, saying that if you want to prevent bleeding, you don't have to compromise in terms of other clotting pathways. Sizzle Biotech, Yorkshire company, AIM-listed, some great names there. But let's move on to sort of the student examples, some of the programs that we're working with at the moment. So this is Tiwa Oma, African braids, hair pieces for women and children experiencing alopecia. Sakina, this guy has 750,000 subscriptions in the first 6 months. This is like Headspace meets counseling meets mindfulness. It's a really fabulous platform, but it also recognizes that all those resources that we access for many people, and we can link them to our faith. Again, we're the stronger for it. So rather than having to go to 3-4 places for spiritual and physical, mental well-being, let's go to one app, which actually gives us a pathway to all those in an integrated way. Fabulous, really taking off, particularly in the city. Please, on the way to the station, if you're walking back to Thorning to the Healthy Mojo, it is a zero waste fruit juice company. Zero waste. So the pits are used to make sweets, and the skins are used to make building products, and they guarantee zero waste. So totally recycled. Closer, fabulous business. This is a menstrual planning app, so it helps a woman to know the 4 stages of her menstrual cycle and how to plan her diary so that when she's at the creative stage, she can be creative. When she's reflective, then she plans reflective activity. So, becoming the best version of 4 versions of herself, turning this whole idea of menstruation being a burden to something that could be seen and managed and planned as an asset. And also at the same time giving women an opportunity to contribute to alleviating period poverty in different parts of the world. Students were struggling with preparing their consulting skills. They were all assessed, the dentists, the midwives and others are all assessed on their ability to consult. So this is an AI-enabled training tool. Again, the university's invested in this. This guy has won several fintech and tech awards for distributed cloud storage. One click for those of us that are drop shipping. This actually enables you to choose the lowest cost supplier and also chooses the lowest cost distribution option so that you can send your goods in drop shipping at the lowest overall transaction cost, maximize your profit, all in one click. Green tech for cars, peace building, a care farm, and creating a franchise of local farms that all give up their time and their resources to help people with dementia to feel a renewed purpose in life. Gamification of health tech, currency exchange. This guy attended one of our programs 2 years after completing ASAP, raised £60 million for a blockchain-enabled travel agency. So various options for supporting your business. For those of you that are seriously considering it, I would recommend, believe it or not, I recommend Bradford Council's portal for funding. It's absolutely superb. Funding for business. Bradford developed it. It's now used by authorities around the UK. A lot of help available, particularly for startups. A whole lot of new funding coming in. Just to finish, remember, if you are going to be an entrepreneur, it's a little bit of that mindset as well. The thing that we started with. It's about breaking rules. This guy was able to advertise his barbecues throughout India at the cost of a MIG welder and a few metal spatulas. Yeah. You could get your message out there. You want to change the world. It says wrong fake. It's an amnesty campaign in very, very affordable ways. You can promote your gym in creative ways. There are all sorts of ways to hustle to vision as an entrepreneur. So this guerrilla marketing concept, in some ways, has been well studied, but it's still very much at the heart of entrepreneurial mindset. So this is the founder of blockchain, one of the founders of blockchain, saying to us all, again, it probably can't read it, I'm really sorry, it's right at the bottom, but it says, the most dangerous risk of all, the risk of spending your life not doing what you want, or the bet you can buy yourself the freedom to do it later. So with that, please get in touch with the BRE team, Sonia there as well, the back of the room. Many of you will know her, recently joined the team. Please get in touch with us if you can advise, if you can help. And most importantly, if you're on the brink of setting up an enterprise, or you just like to take that first tentative step, then there's a whole community here that's willing to help you. So with that, thank you very much for your attention. I hope I haven't eaten too much into your break. I'll be around for later on today as well. Happy to have a chat with all of you. Thank you very much.